Welcome back. You're listening to Houston Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Shannon Register, and every week we bring you news and information you can use on your real estate transactions. Today we've got an exciting show for you. We're having lots of fun with it. It's mold, meth, and marijuana. This was actually a lecture that was done by Fort Bend Women's Council of Realtors last year, I believe, and had a great turnout in the realtor community. So I wanted to really take this show to Houston Real Estate Radio, to our listeners who are consumers, to give you some great information, because it was really interesting. This segment, we're really focusing on landlords and things that you need to know about potential tenants who could be doing illegal activities in your property. So I've actually got Detective Michael Hammons calling in. He's with the Fort Bend County Narcotics Task Force. So thank you so much for calling in. We appreciate you taking time. I know you're busy out there on the street, so we appreciate you calling into the show today.
It's my pleasure.
So I want to really focus on these landlords, the landlords that truly, honestly have put their money into a home to have an investment property. They may have 1 or 4 of these around the city, and they really are using them to have an investment and to have an additional income. And when someone comes in and uses it as a grow house or as a meth lab, it really can cause them a lot of problems. And so another segment of the show, we talked about the mold problems and other issues that come up. So this segment, I really want to focus on what kind of liability the landlord has and what they can do to prevent that from happening. So let's start with looking for signs in potential tenants. So if a landlord is going to rent to a tenant, what are some things that they could that might throw off alarms for them to know that this tenant might be doing some illegal activity in the house?
Well, they could. Growers would like to give you a limited amount of information. And sometimes they would actually try to give you the wrong information. So if you don't take your time to verify and check IDs and current driver's license and things like that, I'm sure they would try to maybe get their lease signed in a different name or something that would that way it wasn't researchable if the police were able to catch their grow.
And I know. Sometimes to keep the landlord from wanting to research them, they just offer them a lot of money, right? They want to pay in advance and just make it really beneficial for them.
Sure, yeah. Oh, yeah. They'd love to write, a year in advance, a check for a year in advance. That way you don't worry about what's going on at the house and you don't have to contact them.
Mm-hmm. So for somebody who owns their home locally, I'm guessing they need to be driving by that house, right, and checking on it quite often?
I would constantly check my property, yes, because of some of the things that I've seen in the past. It doesn't take these guys long to completely devastate a property.
Mm. What kind of things are landlords looking for when they're checking on the property, when they're driving by? What kind of signs are there?
The funny thing about growers is they cover all of the windows in the house. That doesn't mean that they're growing in the house if they cover all the windows, but I'm talking about small ornamental windows that normally wouldn't have a blind, or maybe even that fancy lead glass door that you bought, paid really good money for, and then they just put a piece of paper over it. Things like that, covered windows. Sometimes, the air conditioner will be running even if it's, 40 or 30 degrees outside. That's a weird deal. The neighbors will always say the air conditioner constantly runs and never turns off. If that's the case, then of course your drain on the side of your house where your air conditioner drains, it'll be a nice swamp over there. They don't necessarily have to visit the property every day when they're growing, so a lot of times they will leave outdoor lights on and off, off at night, on during the day. I mean, just irregular things, maybe excessive amount of, literature on the doors where people have come by trying to sell you something. Maybe some, newspapers the neighborhoods throw out, they'll pack up, out in the yard. Just another thing is they like to spend a limited amount of time on the property itself. So, sometimes you'll see the yard is mowed, but it hasn't even been weed eated, or the bushes haven't been trimmed in a year. So the grass will be, mowed or maybe even dead, but you'll see that for some reason every time they mow, they don't weed eat. So I guess they don't want to spend that much time there edging and weed eating, but then they don't want the grass to get out of control and the owner actually get a letter from the association.
Mm-hmm. Now, Also, the people who own, I guess, more potential homes, I know you had said earlier, more potential homes are the ones who are left with management companies, not actual homeowners who are managing them themselves.
Exactly. Some people that live in the area, they will rent their home themselves. But, I have had a lot of, actual investors who've bought from out of state and have hired, people to take care of their home, a management company. Mm-hmm. And one or two cases, we found that, these management companies also were in cahoot with the growers, and they were letting the growers know, hey, this house is owned by somebody in Washington, and, we're in charge of it. So it's like a free-range situation for them.
Wow, that's not good. Okay. So as a renter, it's we've been talking about, what landlords need to look for in a tenant. Let's talk about a renter for a minute. If someone is potentially renting a house, how can they find out if it's ever been used for an illegal purpose, or is there a way for them to find out?
Well, they can always research with their local police department. Usually, the records division or somebody can talk to them, maybe find their neighborhood patrol officer and just have a chat with them and see, if they've had any prior calls there. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is going to be, withheld, but there's a certain amount of public information you could find.
Yeah.
Researching Google maybe on the address, that'll bring up any news articles if they put anything, maybe just your block name, not even your exact numbers,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as far as the house goes, there's some telltale signs of properties that have been previously used for grows. You'll see a lot of repaired sheetrock, maybe a brand new carpet, but the padding hasn't been replaced. You can tell when they will drill big holes or cut big holes in the floors and run extra venting for air and stuff like that. So those are, if they're really good at it, I guess, and they're sheetrock, experienced, I guess they could texture it right. But I've been in a lot of the homes afterwards, and it's kind of apparent that something's been hanging from the ceilings in the rooms, and there's been extra holes, cut and repaired. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when you get up in the attic, if you just get up in the attic and look at the air conditioning ducts, you'll see that there's extra ducts, laying around up there that aren't connected. Marijuana growers have to keep their rooms cooled really nice and evacuate air and add air into the rooms. So there's extra ducting up there and stuff like that. So those are a couple things you can look for.
And if the owner of the property really has no idea this is going on, and you guys find that there is illegal activity, and you go in and kind of bust this up, what happens? The property is owned by someone else, so y'all don't seize it, right?
Well, if we do a thorough investigation and we find that the homeowner had no idea, then of course it's a rental property or an investment property, and we can't hold that against them that they didn't make smart decisions on choosing renters.
Right.
So we won't seize that now.
Okay. And if a landlord finds out this is going on, there are some ways to kind of rush through an eviction, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I've had them call down and say that they think that's going on, and we've done a quick investigation on it and realized that it was. Mm-hmm. Of course, once we took the person to jail, we went down to the justice of the peace with them. I've had them call me down there, and I'll bring photos and stuff like that they might not be accessible to at the moment, because it's a quick thing. You want to get into your house and see how much damage has been done.
Sure.
So I've gone down and testified in front of the justice of the peace here in the neighborhoods and let them know what's going on and ask for emergency evictions. Just to in the house as quickly as possible and make sure there's no more dangers, for them.
Well, I know that Fort Bend is just growing like crazy over there. Is this a huge problem? Is this really a big problem?
I wouldn't say it's a huge problem, but it keeps me busy in Fort Bend County and in Harris County. We have a problem with it. We're also seeing some people from California and Colorado where it's legal to grow marijuana come down to Houston and grow marijuana, mm-hmm. or to Fort Bend County in particular. They'll bring their grower's license with them. It's kind of funny to see, and you ask them, why have you came down here when you could grow it legally wherever you're at?
Right.
And they tell you the market's flooded where it's legal to grow it, and they'd rather come down here where they can make a little more money even though it's illegal.
Wow. And take that risk. Huh. Interesting. All right. And we didn't talk a lot about meth houses. I know you said you haven't had to do a lot with meth houses, but just in general, what are some signs that landlords can look for a meth house? I know we've had properties that people have tried to list that were meth labs, and they were pretty torn up inside. I mean, they were so badly damaged, and we were warned not to go in the houses until they were fixed because of the chemicals and the mold and everything. What are some signs that this is going on?
Well, on meth houses, you rarely see them now in the actual the populated parts of our counties. Right now, Mexico has the drug lords of Mexico have come up with super labs now, where they can buy the ingredients separately and produce large amounts of methamphetamines and make it a whole lot cheaper. So then here on the streets, we have an influx of it, and the price has gone down. So the normal rural part of our county cooks, where they would be, that have not been cooking methamphetamines lately. But I won't say you won't ever run into one. In meth houses, are in science lab, you'll see, in high school or in college, you'll see that there's lots of glassware and chemicals around. I mean, it's a crude science lab and a meth lab, and the chemicals that they will be using are very volatile. So, and just because they pour that out doesn't mean the vapors aren't still there. These things don't stick around in the house. But if I were looking for a meth house, I would pay attention to vented windows, maybe extra trash laying around, because in order for a meth cook here in our area to cook meth, they'll have to buy separate things and separate ingredients from it. So, like pseudoephedrine pill base, like the white part of the pill is still left, but the colored part of the pill is gone. You'll have thousands of those laying around. Maybe the wrappers where pseudoephedrine was, which is, I don't know if you know what pseudoephedrine is, kind of maybe an allergy medicine.
Right, yes.
And they come in like little cellophane packages,
right,
where you have to pop them out
aluminum
individually.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you'll see a million of those batteries that are taken apart because you need lithium out of them. Acetone, extra acetone in jars and jugs, and just stuff laying around that you don't have any idea what chemical it might be.
Mm-hmm.
They'll throw some of these cans and canisters and stuff out in the yard because it gets cluttered in there during the process. So I'd pay attention to just the trash and the clutter that would be laying around, and anything that I could readily identify that might be part of the ingredients of making methamphetamines.
All right, very good. Well, lots of great information out there for our landlords, our potential tenants, and people who are thinking about getting into landlord business. They really need to know what they're getting into and how to pick a good tenant. So we appreciate it. Great information for our Mold, Meth, and Marijuana show. We thank you so much for calling in, Detective Michael Hammons. We appreciate you and appreciate the good work you're doing over there in Fort Bend.
No problem. If y'all see something that you're interested in, you think it might be a grow house, Fort Bend, Harris County, whatever, don't hesitate to call our agency and ask for me, and I'll help you through it. We'll take a look at it.
Wonderful. All right, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for calling in today.
No problem.
All right, you're listening to Houston Real Estate Radio. We'll be back right after a word from our sponsors.
Imagine you and your family return from a tropical vacation to find that one of your pipes burst, flooding your entire house. Are you fully covered? Will you only receive $100 for your TV that cost you $2,000 just 2 years ago? Will your insurance company pay for you to live in a hotel while your home is being repaired? What if on that same trip you lose your wedding ring? Will your home insurance coverage replace that as well? All insurance policies are not created equal. If you don't know the answer to these questions, you're not alone. Most people don't understand the gaps in their coverage until it's too late. Call Goosehead Insurance today and let one of our agents review your current policy to ensure that you are fully covered. At Goosehead Insurance, we understand the power of choice. Instead of working for a single insurance company, our agents have access to over 20 A-rated carriers. This allows us to craft a policy to fit your particular lifestyle, budget, and needs. It also enables us to reshop your policy in the future if necessary, saving you time and money. No need to look for another agent. At Goosehead, we've got you covered. Our agents will walk you through each policy decision so that you have the coverage you need. If that's not reason enough, talk to one of our happy clients. Our client satisfaction scores are 3 times the industry average. To experience the Goosehead insurance difference, visit us online at goosehead.com or call us at 800-474-1377.